Hi, everybody. Ian Walsh here, Hard Money Bankers with The Moment Money Matters. Joined today with Maria Quattrone. Maria, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to speaking with you today.
Sure. I invited Maria on. We had exchanged some messages on Facebook, and I've actually heard about you probably for 5 or 6 years since I really kind of learned a lot of the players in the real estate market in Philadelphia. But I've always had you on my list of people to reach out to talk with on one of these. Um, so I really appreciate you coming on, and I'd like to talk about the success that you've had in the Philadelphia market and where your business is going.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
So, you know, people always see the glory, but they don't know the story, right?
yeah, of
So
course.
I just didn't arrive and showed up all of a sudden. Here I am.
So tell
So
us
my
about that.
background,
Yeah, tell me about. So, like,
yeah,
at some point, you weren't Maria Quattrone that people know now. You were Maria
correct,
Quattrone. I haven't sold a house yet. Like, you were like every other realtor
right.
getting their license. So, how do you tell the story?
So my sales career began probably when I was about 7, first
Okay,
selling popcorn and lemonade on the corner.
perfect.
And then, from there, I literally had my first job door knocking, right? Which is what real estate agents do today. Some anyway, to get business.
Yep.
I was probably maybe 10, and I found this magazine came in the mail, and in it there was a little section that said, sell not magazine, sell wrapping paper and Christmas cards door to door. And for every item you sold, you got $1. So you would collect the money. Say that wrapping paper was $3 or $4 for the card, something like that. Back in this is in late '70s, early '80s. And so my first year, I door knocked all the neighbors, probably like 4 blocks around where we lived, and I sold 125 items. So I kept $1, and then I sent the money, the rest of it out. I guess maybe I don't know if we sent it in a check, or I don't remember that part of it, but we sent the rest of the money out, and then they would send us the product back, and then I would deliver the wrapping paper or Christmas cards, either for like Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever. So that was like when I was 10, because I wanted to make money so I could buy my family Christmas presents from the Christmas bazaar. As we went to Catholic school, we had this big Christmas bazaar every year, and I wanted to have money for the Christmas presents. So that's like sales job number 2, I guess. And then I sold fabric at a fabric store. People making clothes. I was making clothes, and um, that was interesting because it's not like selling door to door. People have to come to you,
Sure.
but definitely with sales. And from there, went to college, 3 colleges, started at textiles. Didn't want to do that anymore. Fashion design. So I went to a county school, and while I was doing that, I bartended, waitress. I sold roses. I was a rose girl, which people don't even know what that is because I don't even think they exist anymore. But that was pretty crazy, selling roses at 1 o'clock in the morning in bars with like no people in them. But I hustled and you know made literally $1, $1 a rose.
Well, I
I
mean,
think the
you've been
Christmas
in sales your whole life, is what it is. I mean,
I've been in
literally.
sales my whole life, right? Paid my way through college, graduated from Temple University with a degree in communications, studying radio, TV, and film, minor in marketing. And so there, my professional career begins. I'm 24 years old. I'm selling airtime, and I worked in that industry for 11 years until I came into real estate.
What got you?
And in fact,
How did it go
yeah, go
from
ahead.
airtime into real estate? How did that leap
Yeah,
happen?
absolutely. So like I for some reason when I got into that career, my first, professional career, I said, "Oh, this is going to be 10 years." I don't even know where that even came from. Like where do you pull that out of? But and so I had like a 7-year itch and then a 9-year itch, and a friend of mine who was buying apartment buildings with his three partners, which I didn't even really understand what even that was at the time and
Sure.
how that even happened. And he was telling me, I own this building, 12 floors, it's 20 apartments. I go, how do you own that building? Like, yeah, that just was crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had dinner with him one night, Saturday night, and he said, have you ever thought about real estate? I think you'd be really great. And I'm like, I don't know. Real estate, I see people walking around with these signs or like holding the sign.
Mm-hmm.
I had a weird thing about the sign and people walking down the street holding their sign. It was weird to me. And so he says, you should just meet with my business partner, Steven. So this was in '03 fall, probably like October. And in November, I met with Steven. And I finally took me 3 tries to meet with Steven. Finally, the third time, the meeting stuck and we met. And I probably talked to Zero for like 2.5 hours, asked him a lot of questions. And by December, I made the commitment that I was going to get my real estate license. So I signed up for the class. The next class available was weekends in January. And I remember this particular time. We had a big snowstorm. It was so cold. Heaters were broke. I was going to class and sitting there with my coat on, bringing like a blanket in the class because there was no heat. It was like pretty insane. But working full time in the radio industry and then also studying and taking the classes for real estate. So by March, I had my license of '04. And for the next 11 months, I worked in both. I did both. And I went to my boss at the time. I said, listen, I'm getting my license. I really didn't know what that meant. I really didn't know what exactly I was going to do yet because I had to kind of get into it and see if it was something that I wanted to pursue. And then very quickly, I realized that I was really pretty good at this. And I think a lot of that came from not having a fear of rejection
Sure.
and having, because when I started in the radio business, my first job was at a small TV station in Atlantic City, actually it was WMGM TV 40, and it was in Linwood, New Jersey. And I, at that time, was able to get over at least the initial fear of the phone. Because at first, I didn't like it, the phone. I didn't want to call anybody. In fact, I was hanging up on people when they were answering the phone. And then I started, how I got in front of people and I was actually able to sell advertising was I literally went to business. And so I was able to meet them in person or at least get the contact name in person, go back to the office or the next day and then make that phone call. Because now I had some confidence because I had some power because I knew who it was that I needed to call.
So I think,
So by the time,
yeah, but
yeah,
before you jump onto that, I think something that's very interesting that you just said, and I think it's something that you can't overlook, and I'm sure you know at this point in your career, but two things that you mentioned there was one was that, everybody's like, man, like the scariest thing for everybody to do is cold calling, right? Whether you're door knocking, and I did that early in my career, or you're doing, the cold call on the phone. And it's like, it's not like everybody's uncomfortable there. It's a matter of how bad you want it. So then initially, when your situation happens, you decide it doesn't matter. I'm going to find a way around this. And then you made a comment about you don't about the you're not afraid of rejection. And I think I can just hear it through your voice, the way you're talking, and obviously you're very successful at sales. Like you don't take rejection personally. And I think a lot of people, when they're kind of in this business, they hear no and they reflect on it personally. When in reality, you know that it's the buyer or the potential buyer has, or the seller, whatever you're selling, it's a reflection of whatever they have going on in their life. And when you can kind of, put that barrier out there or disassociate from that in a sales rejection, you really become pretty battle hardened in realizing, oh, it's not me. I'll just continue my process that works. And some say yes, some say no. It's a numbers game, and that's the way it goes. And I'll do my best. And I think that skill set, even though it sounds easy when you say it or the way you portray it in what you're saying, it took years to refine that skill and be okay with it. I'm sure it had to have with you. And it sounds like, that probably has something to do with your personality and the way you are today.
yeah, I think it took a good, I would say, a minimum of 5 years before I
Sure.
felt comfortable, somewhat, and confident, right? And so by the time like I'm on easy street in my first career, I'm exiting that and going learning the next thing. So when I got into the real estate business, I went and worked with Steven. I didn't even interview anywhere. I just was like, oh, I'll just work with him.
Sure.
And when I got in, I had to learn real estate, which, spent a lot of time and energy analyzing market stats, understanding absorption rates. I did this in like year one, whereas a lot of people don't even know what it is and they're in the
Nah,
business.
no, yeah, that's right.
So I understood that very quickly. In fact, when my last day at my last career in radio was February 5th, 2005. So we are what, February 5th, 4th today, 2020. So that's how many years ago I left the industry. But when I left, I said, wow, I have to really learn now a new industry, and I need to learn the terminology. I need to learn, you know, how properties, how why they get sold in the fashion they do, quick or slow. And so I started to watch the market, and I would go to my broker at the time, and I'd say, "Oh my God." I said, "Do you see all the inventory coming up?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I'm staring at the MLS every day, and more and more and
Mm,
more properties are coming on the market." Now, this is like end of '05, '06. See, the
mhm.
market already had shifted. Nobody really saw it. People didn't see it. I mean, sure there were some, but very few people,
They
right?
didn't feel it
So the
yet.
crash didn't. The crash happened in '08, but we already the amount of inventory that we had. We were at the height of a market inventory wise in 2006, and I was able to see that then, right? So I knew that we were. It was just a matter of time before the house of cards came crashing down. Now I didn't have a lot of experience at this point in real estate, but I had enough experience about business. And because I was in the industry I worked with a lot of business owners, right, who own real estate, who bought a lot of advertising, they spent a lot of money in marketing. So I was used to already working with people who were decision makers. So for me, the fear was like, oh, somebody needs a house to live in, or an apartment, or a condo, or like they're regular people buying a house. Everybody has to live somewhere. So I wasn't afraid to talk to people. And I think a lot of times, even if you have energy and enthusiasm and you smile a lot and you listen to them and you identify their needs and bring them to what it is that they want, even though they may not know. I mean, we sold people houses that did not want new construction. They wanted a traditional Philadelphia row home who bought a new construction house.
Okay.
Why? Because they didn't know what they thought they knew what they wanted.
Mm,
But then when it came down to it, and he said, okay, well, their lifestyle's super busy. You know, wouldn't new construction, wouldn't that allow them to have an easier life a little bit, right? Not
sure.
worrying about fixing things. These old homes, there's always stuff that comes up. How much time and energy do you want to put into renovating something? You're for example, this one couple are very busy professionals. They don't have the extra time and patience to sit there with contractors. You have to be able to identify that. And that comes through listening to what people are saying that they're not even saying.
Mm.
I think that's a learned skill that takes time to master. And a lot
I've
of
got.
times,
Well, let me ask this. So you've gathered these skill sets over the years for yourself, and I've been paying attention to your business a bit. Have you expanded into a team? Have you grown in business wise? Because you've gotten to a point where your skills, you're probably looking to scale your skills in some capacity, and you can't do it all yourself. So
absolutely.
what are you doing? Like what's going on with your
So,
business now?
so for many years, I ran a team out of another brokerage, and 6 years ago, I decided I was going to go on my own, and I bought a Remax franchise. So our company is Remax at Home, and
Okay.
within our company, we're Maria Quattrone and Associates. And I had a couple iterations in the last 6 years. For the first few years, I really didn't understand the operational side of a brokerage and what that meant because I'm on the sales side. I'm the
Right.
visionary, right? So I had to learn a lot of things, and it was really, really hard. And I was like ready to quit like 27 times and like pack it up and do something else or go somewhere else. And then I kept going and going, and I said, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. I'm smart. I can figure this out. So figured it out. I didn't know, like, should I have this team or should I have agents? So in 2016, I hired all these new agents and like a dozen, say, brand new. I called them. They bought into my vision. They came. I trained them, and by the end of 16, so this is like 15, half of 15 into all of 16. End of 16, I said, "Oh my God, every single one of them quit." And my ego at the time thought that because under my tutelage that they would be successful. What I
Mm.
didn't count on was their desire to be successful,
Oh
and were
yeah.
they willing to do what they needed to do? And the
That's
answer was no, they weren't.
That's really interesting. I learned that. So I used to before I ever got into real estate in college. I used to run a college painting company, like one of those. I don't know if you've probably seen them around or remember them back in school. And I had at some point I grew elevated to a point where I was managing other college students. And I'm sure I can hear it in your voice. You poured your heart and soul into those 12 agents and everything you had, right? And then when they would just call you one day and say this isn't for me or I'm quitting, it hurts, it burns, right? And I realized, and I'm sure the same thing that you're saying right now is that like you can give everything you want, but it has to match the desire of the person on the other side. If it doesn't, you are just going to give 10 times the effort to get 0 times the results. Whereas I'm sure of those 12 agents though, a couple of them probably stayed and they were really really good superstars, but the majority of people, it's just a numbers game. It's the same thing, 80%, 20-80, right? 80-20 rule is probably what you ran into, I'm guessing.
Well, unfortunately for me, it was the end of it was November 16, and they all quit the industry except for one. And he
Okay.
went to he went to another brokerage. He went to HomeSmart, and so um, he wanted to do wholesaling and stuff, and we couldn't do it at my company at the time, so we couldn't make that work. But
Sure.
so here's what happened. I wake up. It's almost Thanksgiving of 16, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I got to figure out something because I'm going to be seriously, I'm going to be broke soon if I don't, because the expenses of carrying a brokerage
Yeah.
without having obviously sales, a lot of sales, right? Because I had enough where we were, my business covered that, but then what's left? So
Brokerages
I
are
said,
expensive to run. A lot of people, a good
very
brokerage is
expensive.
expensive.
They have
Yeah.
no idea. People have no
Yeah.
idea what it costs. I mean,
Yeah.
I have five. I have four admin plus the sales. Someone who works on the sales side who's on
Yeah.
salary. So there's
Payroll's
five,
real.
right?
Oh,
Right, real expenses, copiers, lights, rent, all this stuff, marketing. So I said, oh, I got to go back into sales 150%. And you know what? I want to do it with licensed support staff. And so that started in 17. So in 17, I said, I'm going to go back into my marketing, back into making this. And I explained it like this, like I wanted to imagine a 20-foot steel wheel that's 10 feet in diameter.
mm-hmm.
And it's a marketing machine, right? How
Sure.
hard is it to get that wheel to move? How much do you have to put behind it, right? You keep pushing,
Mm-hmm.
pushing. Oh, you stop pushing and stop. But then one day, what happens? The wheel starts to spin, and it's really, really hard to stop a 5,000-pound, 20-foot wheel that's already spinning in momentum. And that's what I've been working over the last, basically, 3 years in order to build. So it was myself and all support up until December. We just brought in a listing partner and a, excuse me, a buyer agent partner who hopefully this year she'll become a listing partner. And we are growing from there and bringing more people into our Maria Quattrone and Associates because we've been building that brand. And this year we expanded into some endorsements. You're familiar with Barbara Corcoran from the Shark Tank?
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
So, yep, we're endorsed by her. We're running spots now
Oh,
on Channel
nice.
6. I'm in the spot with Barbara. She's recommending me for her real estate broker of choice in Philadelphia and
Oh,
surrounding
nice.
area.
Nice.
And we're doing some stuff with Andy over at WXTU, Andy Summers. So expanding into radio and some other stuff with WPHT that hasn't launched yet, but that is launching. So now it's time to take what we're doing, go to the whole nother level, and build the team around it, because what we've been able to do with all the different marketing sources that we're doing, and we don't buy leads. We're not buying Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, or anything like that. We buy new leads, which is very unusual for a real estate
Right.
company. Usually,
Sure.
most of them big teams, they all buy leads. We do not. We're building a brand,
Sure.
and so now we're able to provide, like, our listing partners, our buyer agents. Our inside sales associate is sending appointments for them. So they're going out on the appointment. They're securing turning the opportunity into a client. And then the office staff handles listing management, marketing, contract to close. So it allows sales to just go out and for us to do what we do best, and that's business development.
And I like that.
And
I
so,
think. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I was just
no,
gonna
no,
say.
no, it's fine.
Let me. So the one thing I take away from that is and I've definitely noticed this. People that have been around, like I've been around for 10 or 12 years in this business now, and I've done the same kind of stuff you have in terms of certain things work for me that I found. Like you found a brokerage, running the brokerage really wasn't your thing, but like then you're tenacious and you say, well, what am I good at? And you find your skill sets, and then you build around those skill sets. And your skill sets are sales. Like you're really good at sales. You've been doing it since you were 7. I knew what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. I'm not great at managing people, and when I was in those positions to manage people, I was not as happy as I could be. But when I'm doing what I like to do, you just kind of know it in your life because you're a happier person. It sounds like you've kind of found that, and you're on a massive direction. You've channeled that direction very very accurately as to where you need to be, what you need to do, and you're getting that snowball effect with that 5,000 pound wheel is what you're effectively talking about. All of a sudden, you get to a point where day one is like you're just pushing that train, and then you're like, I don't even know where these leads are coming from. They're coming from all over the place because of marketing you did 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, whatever it may be. So it sounds like you found sort of trial and error and a lot of resilience. What you need to be doing to be happy and successful in your life right now.
Yeah, I think also on top of that, for the last, I'd say, year and a half, almost, not quite, but almost, let's say 16 months, I have been focusing on personal development. So I have 2 coaches, a business consultant, and then a personal coach.
Nice.
And I'm working through my issues, right? My trauma that has held me back, right? And how do we change our, our vocabulary, the way that we look at things, the way that we um, see others, because we're seeing others through ourselves, right? So
Always right.
what
Yeah.
is right? And being transparent, like I've been always transparent, but at another level of transparency. So for not holding resentment, and because if we don't say how we feel, because most people, as we say, are honest liars, right? They think they're telling the truth. Oh, how you doing today? Oh, well, I'm great. No, you're not great. You have this thing, that thing. You feel horrible, but that's autopilot, right?
Yeah.
Honest liars. So focus really on, if I had a situation where a close, somebody actually that was at my wedding bought a house with somebody else. And I found out at a Christmas party in December. So I said, very direct conversation, because I did not want to have resentment. And by having a direct and honest conversation, not, not like mean or anything like that, but just very direct about my feelings about it, no longer am I in resentment for that, right? I gave
Sure.
it, because if we don't say it and tell somebody, we hold on to it.
Oh,
And
and you
how
make
much
things
of
up in
it
your brain, and they're making stuff
holding
up, you're
on to
making
for
stuff up.
years.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, it's not good. Yeah.
But this affects your ability to lead,
Sure.
right? And to be a leader and leadership. And you only can lead others the best that you can lead yourself.
Sure. I like that. Yeah.
So how do we get better at doing that? And personal development, is the number one thing. Everything else, I always say, because one of my coaches says, is tiny hinges swing big doors. So it's not what we're doing, say, from a standpoint of how we work with our clients, is it's not anything massive that makes a difference. It's the tiniest details and how we change our language. So we don't list property. We market and sell property.
Hmm.
right? Because nobody wants to be listed and not sold. So we're
Sure.
marketing and selling property. We're not listing. Getting rid of that vocabulary, and it's a mind set shift.
Sure.
And working like, so it's not how much weed it is, what the effects of that are for the consumer, for the client. So when you work with us, you'll be in the good company of the 2,000 other plus home buyers and sellers who've been very successful in, a sale. You, not us, we.
Sure.
And it's being able to change the vocabulary. So a lot of the personal development also helps with that. So it's been a journey for sure, and it will continue to be one. And it's one of the things that's most important is being able to enjoy the journey wherever it is that you're going, and having fun along the way. And
It's
those are the most important
it's
things
funny you say
because
that. I've had a couple journeys in my life too that have been, tough in terms of just things I've been trying to accomplish. I have one that specifically I've been working on for 15 years, right? And like the one thing that the people that I deal with that they always say just like it's so hard, but enjoy the journey, right? Because it's like once you get there, the journey's over, and it is. It's hard. I really try to enjoy that journey, even when it's difficult along the way now. But because I guess that's what it's all about. It's really not about that destination. It's about the journey itself. So, but let me do this, Maria. So I think I want to do two things. One, I'd like to get you back on for a video to video as well in the future. So we'll probably make it like a two-part video here. And in the meantime, I usually like to have everybody's information on there. Is there anything you'd like to kind of leave people with on this part before we gonna go to like another video, maybe in a month or so? What would you like to leave people with now? Like, where's your business going? And like, if somebody wanted to contact you and talk with Maria and say, hey, I'm an agent coming on board, or I'm a homeowner looking to, market and sell, not just list, market and sell. How would they do that?
no, I think that, well, one, they could always reach us, give us a call or email us directly, either or. It's 215-607-3535. But whether, one of the things people always ask me, what makes a property get sold? And we have about a 50-point checklist that we go through when we're marketing and selling properties that I think a lot of people don't do. Um, so one of the things that how this all came about is when I started my career in listing property, I was calling expireds. So I had to come up with a system. So I, over the years, have perfected that system and made it tighter and tighter, and we keep adding elements to it. So people say, well, what gets a property sold? It's a combination of 50 things. One of those things cannot not be done.
Hmm. Okay. I like
We
that.
we have to have all of those things. So whether, and I literally had an agent call me from another company a couple weeks ago. He came to the office, and he had reached out and emailed me. He said, I saw that you had the property, you just sold this property in Point Breeze. And I said, yeah. He says, I had it for 4 months and it didn't sell. It's actually two properties across the street. And he's like, I don't understand like what you did. I can't figure it out. And so I sat down with him and I showed him and I spoke with him and I said, here's all of the different things. Did you have this? Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you? And I'd say about 20% of it wasn't done. These are all things that every agent has in their toolbox, but people aren't taking time in order to do it.
Hmm.
So what we do from our back office standpoint is we have all these things that happen on the listing in order to market and sell that property. And whether it's working with an investor or a developer or a homeowner or the agent who's going to work with us in our company, knowing that we have literally, I think in January, we had 8 new sellers come on board. I'm not 8. We had more than that, but 8 of the ones that we had, and I think there was like 25 new sellers come on board. 8 of those were expired listings
Okay. So you're still attacking those pretty
because
hard.
Yes, because it's like we are not letting one thing go undone. Not
Gotcha.
one thing.
I love it.
And
Thorough.
so I could talk more about that in the future, but anyway, as you could probably tell, I'm very passionate about what we do, and I'm very methodical, and I'm extremely detail oriented in making sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed because this is our clients' money on the line. This is how, if they're an investor, they feed their family, and so we take that very seriously.
Sure, it should be. I like it. I mean, that's a good finishing piece there. So I would like to say to everybody that's going to be watching this, we'll do a follow up as well. I'd like to talk more about what you guys are doing and maybe the systems you have in place and the things that I like the personal growth factor as well. I don't think that's just something that I'm sure you tell your rest of your team to make sure that they're focused on that as well. So Maria, I really appreciate it today, and yeah, I look forward to our next one as well.
Thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on your show, and I look forward to seeing you and talking with you in the next month.
No problem. Sounds good.